Thank you very much, Professor Sathapitanon. Due to the political crisis during this time, so we have amended the schedule a little bit. So you will have the final one in your hand right now. We will have Ms. Deeyah Khan as the only keynote speaker, and she will speak this morning. Today, I just like to tell you that we will have a very relaxing conversation for the keynote speaker, which is very unusual for the international conference, because we are artists, why not? So we do in an artistic way. So may I invite Ms. Deeyah Khan to come on the stage with Professor Kjell Skyllstad from Norway. He is a Professor Emeritus from University of Oslo, and as well as the visiting professor at Faculty of Fine and High Art. Please, two of you can come here, and may I introduce Deeyah just a little bit. Please, Deeyah, please could you come on the stage with Professor Kjell, please? We will do in a conversation format, so interview. And if you are as the audience, you would like to have any question to approach to the speaker, you can do as well. So Deeyah Khan is the activist. She's the film director, music producer, as well as composer, and she's a very famous human rights activist. I would like Professor Kjell Skyllstad to introduce and talk about Deeyah Khan in this session. Please welcome two of them.
Sawadee-ka. Good morning, everyone. When I was asked to introduce Deeyah, I had to ask myself, what persons have inspired my own work in my professional life? What person has given direction to my thinking? What person has empowered and energized me? And now looking out over this congregation, over you, coming here, participants from many parts of the world, I see many faces, I see many persons that have contributed to that in my life, and I want to thank you here and now for inspiring me through so many years. 5 years here at the pillar of the Thai kingdom. This has inspired me so much. Thank you. But now, the picture of Deeyah and your dear family keeps coming up in my mind time and again. Because this picture has been intertwined with the memory of peak experiences in my life. Can I tell you a secret? One of those peak experiences was being invited by your dear father, who was a pioneer of multicultural work in Norway. Yes, he invites me to his home because a new baby was born. Coming from the hospital, being able to see this beautiful child and wondering what will now happen. A new person to carry on his work for sharing culture in multicultural Norway. Music as social outreach, designed for dignity. That is the motto, has been the motto of your life. In fact, this was your work that inspired me to choose this theme, suggest this theme for the 12th forum. And especially I will now appreciate Evelyn sitting here, the president of the Association for Human Dignity, Human Dignity University. You will hear her speak that later. So, now, how did music come into your life? I mentioned your dear father, the pioneer of multicultural music. But very soon, music came into your life.
It did. First of all, you've made me completely speechless by saying the things you've just said. You are such a special person, and I'm so honored and so privileged, so privileged to have had you in my life, to have you in my life, and for you to say the things you've said. I'm so deeply moved and so thankful. You have no idea what this means to me. I would like to thank you all for having me here. This is, as I say, a great privilege to get to sit with this man. So how did music come into my life? Well, you were a very significant part of this. My father was a music lover. I actually asked him this a few months ago. I said, you know, why were you so involved in music? Why was art and culture so important to you? Was it because of me? You know, was it because you wanted to impart this gift on me? And he said, actually, in the beginning, it was not. He said, being a Pakistani man, moving to a country like Norway, he said, I suddenly realized that I was Pakistani. He said, I suddenly was reminded that I am different. And because I realized I was different, I had to search and understand and learn, what does that really mean? And he said, so this search and personal need for identity and this need to find my place in this new world that I had entered is what drove me to exploring the arts and culture and the historical richness that is present in this part of the world and his part of the world that he had left behind. And that is what connected him to music. And he developed a very deep love and appreciation and respect for the very complex and beautiful music that comes from the land of his ancestors. And he realized that it was too late for him to study it to the depth that he wished. And when he had me, and these are his words, he said, when you were born, I felt like I was born again in the form of a woman, and I felt like I had another chance to learn and to connect and to really embrace music. And so he put me into very rigorous, very disciplined music training from the age of about 7. And it was a tough experience. It was a very interesting and enriching experience. And I very quickly found that music, even in my life, became my source of inspiration and material to start building my identity and what it meant to be me in this strange place as well. And I don't know how much people know about some of the work that you've done, but you know, one of the projects that you initiated in Norway was to start creating a dialogue between immigrants, the children of immigrants, with white Norwegian students as well, because it's very easy to become segregated. It's very easy to move farther apart, and there are very few aspects in our life that allows us the possibility to come closer together. And music and art and culture are some of the tools that allows us that connection and that closeness and that sense of integration rather than segregation. And Kjell's work in Norway was very much rooted in trying to bring people closer together, trying to connect and build further understanding. And so some of the projects that Kjell did, I then participated in as well as a child.
When you were 12?
Yes, yes.
Teaching at the age of 12?
It was very embarrassing. It was marvelous, but it was so embarrassing for me. But such a wonderful experience to get to see the reservation on the faces of people when I would start. But then by the end of the day, seeing how people's faces had opened up And not just their faces, but also their hearts had opened up, and you could see people who looked different, who would ordinarily never sit together, would never engage with each other, finally actually making those gestures towards each other and actually coming closer. And that for me, being on the observer part of that, it was absolutely extraordinary. It was very inspiring. So thank you.
Very early, you had one of the big masters coming into your life, inspiring me and teaching you.
Yes.
It must be quite an experience, a very young child, to be directly part in a great music tradition.
Absolutely. It was, I don't think I understood it, being a child, I don't think I understood it as much at the time. I knew that I was in presence of greatness. That there was no doubt about that. And this man is Ustad Fateh Ali Khan from Pakistan. He is one of the greatest vocalists of North Indian classical and Khyal music tradition. Actually, when my father selected him as my teacher, my teacher did not accept me as his student initially because he felt that first of all, being a girl, I would be a bad investment because I would inevitably at some point find a partner and retire and never do music. So he didn't really want to invest in someone like me. Secondly, he said, being a child born and raised in a Western country, surely you will not have the discipline and have the dedication that is required to carry this music form further and to study it with the dedication that is required of you. So I was put through a battery of tests and a battery of exercises where I had to prove myself that I was indeed worthy of his apprenticeship. And eventually I was able to do that, thankfully, because I was very tenacious and a very hardworking little child. So I did finally prove myself to him, and he did decide that yes, indeed, I am worth his time. And somehow we ended up building a very personal and a very deep, wonderful bond where he taught me openly, lovingly, and with so much care. And I felt in awe of this level of talent and this level of mastery of art that he had. So from a very young age, I was privileged, in fact, to get to be around such excellence, such musical, artistic, exquisite excellence. And I think that put a very deep imprint on my heart and on my soul and on what's possible, and how far one can push oneself in terms of one's own creativity. But I would like to say one other thing, since we're speaking about the social relevance of art and of music. As I was growing up, my father, being the extraordinary, visionary human being that he was and is, he made a conscious decision to put myself and my younger brother always in an environment in our home where our house was a revolving door of artists and of activists. And so from a young age, we would have poets coming from Pakistan, we would have theater actresses, we would have classical dancers, we would have American anti-war activists. Our house was this very bizarre meeting point of these extraordinary artists, but who were also socially engaged. So as a child, I understood that the two do belong together, can belong together. Art and activism can actually come together and in fact not only be fruitful, but that combination is a very necessary combination in our society. Of course, art and music's place in the world is beauty. It is containing history, it is dialogue, but it is also rebellion. It is also dissent. It is also taking on injustice and participating one's voice in that way and contributing one's art towards greater social justice, towards a fairer, more equal, a more loving, a more compassionate world. So that was something that became very it was something that was nurtured in our household. So for me, when I grew up and then subsequently became an activist myself, there was no conflict in that. There was no confusion in my mind in that, because I'd seen Pakistani feminists who were also theater actresses. I had seen Pakistani feminists who were also Kathak dancers. So for me, I had seen these remarkable, big people who dared to be big, who had huge hearts, and who dared to contribute themselves fully in the service of our world and in the service of improving our lives in a positive way.
What happened when music, the freedom of music, led you to require your own personal freedom, led you to require for yourself? And that is what music does to us. It requires of ourselves to claim a space of personal freedom, a personal freedom to create and invent, interact. What happened to you when you reclaim your space of your personal freedom?
I think music and the creative and the artistic process, yes, it was a part of my career at that point, but beyond career or any kind of professional expression of art, for me, I think what music has done is it has shaped how I relate to myself as a human being, as a woman, as an artist, as someone who wants to ask questions and engage with my inner world as much as my outer world. And I think music helped me. The only way I can describe it is that it helped build my creative muscles. It helped build my creative capacities to deal with life in a very open and in a very imaginative and creative way. It allowed me the view and the connection to feel what it feels to be liberated, and what it feels like to be yourself, and what it feels like not to be judged or to be on the outside, but to feel fully yourself. And to have had that experience through music and through creativity, it also then very much brought this very deep desire to want to feel that in all of my life, and not be defined or reduced to restrictions that were imposed on me, or expectations that were imposed on me, either as a woman, or you cannot do this because you're a woman, or you cannot accomplish this because you are not white, you cannot do this, or all these you cannot. Music made it possible for me to think, yes, I can, and here are some ways that I can do that. Here are some ways that I can improvise and imagine and reimagine what my life is and what it can be. And I think you said the term yesterday, to compose my own life. And that's very much what it became about. And to apply the disciplines of music, to apply the disciplines of, as I say, improvisation, of dialogue, of even where there are mistakes, there are lessons and ways for us to come closer together. So I would say, what did music do for me, and the artistic and the creative process do for me? I think it allowed me the ability to realize my own potential. And it gave me an inner freedom to start striving for my freedom in my own life, and in the world and in the society and the community that I live in. It gave me those creative tools. It gave me that inner capacity to actually strive for that, and then ultimately start finding it.
I don't know if you all know about this or think about this. Today is Music Freedom Day. And you have been especially connected with the movement of freedom of expression, and freedom of music and expression. Could you tell us a little bit what is the music freedom movement do?
Yes, I am very glad that we are sitting here on Music Freedom Day. And Music Freedom Day, we celebrate music, the importance and the need that we all have for music being a part of our world. But also, today we put focus on the limitations and the restrictions and the suffering that music and musicians are facing in all different parts of the world. Today, around 18 countries in the world, we are celebrating this very precious day. And why is it so precious? It is so precious because although music is beauty, it is a part of our history and it's a part of who we really are. It's a part of nature. It's a part of how we find harmony from our heartbeat to the winds blowing the leaves. It is something that gives us access to universal feelings. It gives us access to what unites us. It gives us access to what is diverse but also connects us. And music and art is an emotional language that transcends everything. It transcends caste, it transcends classes, political differences, social economic differences, and it is also therefore very threatening to people who want to control. So whether it is dictators, whether it is religious fundamentalisms, whether it is any kind of oppressive forces that want to suppress human creativity and human flourishing, you will see music is one of the first things, and artistic expression and creative expressions will be the first things that oppressors will try to get rid of. There is a reason that in Afghanistan, when the Taliban came into power, the two first things that they destroyed and tried to suppress and close, one was music, number two was women. So there's a reason music is felt to be such a threat, and that same reason is the reason we must protect it, and we must stand by it, and we must make sure that the expression of our people, of our countries, of our cultures, and of our humanness is not destroyed, because that is what music is. It is an expression of our humanity in the most pure, in the most beautiful and peaceful way. And that's scary for a lot of people. So as a result, you find musicians persecuted, you find music banned, you find music censored, you find musicians threatened and imprisoned and tortured simply for music. So what is it that is so powerful about music that needs to be imprisoned, right? So therefore, we have the need to have a day like today where we can rejoice in the power of music and the beauty of music, but also recognize that the musicians around the world who are sacrificing themselves in the line of music, in the line of creativity, that we need to stand in solidarity with them. We need to appreciate the sacrifices that they are making, and we need to make sure that they know that they are being heard and that it matters, that they are standing up not just for themselves, but for music and for us.
Now, you have been instrumental in giving people a voice who did not before have that voice. Because I was thinking of all of your projects of trying to give people an arena to project their own individuality through music. Can you tell me a little bit about those projects?
Well, I came up against a lot of resistance in my own life for various reasons. And I had my own freedom of expression reduced or taken from me at various points in my life. And as that happened, one decision that I made in my heart is that I have to do whatever I can to protect and promote freedom freedom of expression, and wherever I can, I must stand up in solidarity with people whose voices are either taken from them, or are reduced, or diminished, or forgotten, or ignored. And as a result of that, one of the projects that I started several years ago was a project called Sisterhood, and that focused around young Muslim women across the world, including young Muslim women who live in Western societies as well, who for many years have been contacting me saying, you know, Deeyah, we want to create, not necessarily for the sake of becoming professional artists, but we feel a very deep yearning to just get to be ourselves and get to just express ourselves in the way that is true to us. But no one supports us, and no one provides us with an outlet to actually do that. And I kept getting these emails for such a long time that eventually I just thought, okay, I'm just going to start a project where all these young women can come together, not just get to express themselves, but also get to build friendships and build connections with other women like themselves around the world. And so I think in about 2007, together they created a digital mixtape of music and poems that they had created. And it was a wonderful experience. It was such a life-giving, inspiring experience for these young women. But of course, immediately there were reactions to it. Immediately there were very conservative clerics who came out, in fact in the UK, saying that this is unacceptable, music is not okay for women to participate in, this is wrong. And as much as that infuriated me, I was so inspired by the fact that these young women created, they claimed their voice, they claimed their space in this world, and continued creating rather than destroying. These clerics were doing nothing but destroying, whereas these young women were creating and giving life to their own potential and their voices. And I believe that as a society, we are richer societies with these voices, these diverse voices, as part of our world, rather than these voices being cut away. They're a part of our world. Sorry, so that's just one of the projects. A few years ago, in collaboration with a partner and a very dear, important organization called Free Muse, which stands for Freedom of Musical Expression, organization based in Denmark. They're an international organization. We put together a CD which is called Listen to the Band, and in that we basically highlighted the voices of artists from Africa, from Asia, from the Middle East, whose voices are censored or stolen or diminished by political forces, state-imposed censorship, or whether it's through religious means, or whether it's through social, or even families. So that's another project. And I continue. I mean, just last year, I also did a project with Iranian women. In Iran, women are not allowed to perform publicly. And what I wanted to do was to provide a stage for these women so they could perform and express themselves exactly the way that they wish and they see fit. So we put together this concert in Oslo, where 4 such women came, and not only are they musically exquisite and extraordinary, but as human beings, they were such full, vibrant, wonderful, strong women, that it was such a remarkable experience for them, first of all, to get to do what they wanted to do, but I think also for the audiences in Oslo. I think it was quite wonderful to get to connect with women who they would typically think of as victims. But instead being able to see them as these glorious, very full human beings. Anyway, I'm talking too much, I think, but yes, I do a lot of work in trying to provide outlets, solidarity and support and recognition and respect for people, for our fellow artists who are around the world suffering and paying a very dear price for all of us. They're not doing this for themselves, they're doing it for us, they're doing it for our children, they're doing it so that music and creativity can continue to blossom and flourish, so that we can all have access to it, so that it does not get stomped out and removed by people who want us to just become one homogeneous, heartless, one very narrow expression of what it means to be a human being. So we must, I think, we must celebrate, we must preserve, we must protect the art and the songs and the stories of our ancestors, of our children today, so that our future children can have access to it. These languages are crucial languages, and we must protect them the best we can and celebrate them, because it is a part of what makes us human.
I'm sorry we don't have too much time. Could we, would there be any questions that could we have time for one or two questions to Deeyah?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. No, that's what music should do. It should make us coming out.
Yes.
Being ourselves.
It is wonderful how it does allow us that. It does allow us ourselves, what intrinsically makes us who we are, for that to flourish and for that to come out, and also for that to rub off on other people. You know, and it's quite extraordinary what it tends to do to people. And you know, and we were speaking yesterday about also the transformative power of music or of art or of creativity. You know, not only does it allow us to become ourselves as fully as possible, but it also is a tool for healing. It's a tool for reconciliation. It's a tool for peace. It's a tool not just to find ourselves, but for a moment to see ourselves in the other, in someone else, and to forget that there is that separation there. So for just one moment, possibilities open up. Our hearts open up. And that's when we have the opportunity to really be creative and really try to move the conversations forward in a productive, positive way. Yes.
Trine, please. Microphone for Trine Eklund, peace activist.
You work with this on your own, or with whom do you cooperate? Because I suppose you can't do all this by yourself. Also, for instance, organize concerts and so on, and find all these people. So you are a team, aren't you?
Well, yes. None of the things that I do, I would be able to do without very dear friendships and very wonderful people who so generously give their time and their expertise. But I have to say it is difficult in some ways to do this work because it's not necessarily recognized as something that's needed. You know, many people will reduce music, for example, to, well, it's just entertainment. So who cares if one form of entertainment, you know, diminishes? And other people will say, well, you know, art and culture is not really that important. It's just a frivolous, luxurious activity. And so I think people don't always give the kind of support and the kind of resources that are needed to keep this alive. And my sort of answer to that is that I do it anyway. And what I do is that I just find a group of dedicated, very big-hearted people who say, yes, they roll up their sleeves, we all roll up our sleeves and just say, yes, we're just going to do this. Doesn't matter if we don't have the money to do it, doesn't matter if we don't have this or that. But if a woman in Iran can retain herself and retain her art in the way that these women, for example, did, then who are we to complain? If she can make it work, surely I can too. So it ends up becoming this very fruitful, very inspiring, energized effort that we all put into it. And it's wonderfully rewarding too, and it's wonderfully beautiful and breathtaking. So yes, there's a huge group of us that do this, but many of us do it as individuals, and then other organizations like Free Muse join us as well. But you know, it's not supported, and it's not as easy to do as I would like.
Well, there is, yes, there's one over there from the Faculty of Fine and Applied Art, from the Visual Arts Division, please.
Deeyah, thank you very much for your illuminating eloquence. It's certainly an inspiration for us all to be listening to your presentation. I just have one question. My question is in regards to the other side of the voices that are against what you represent and what you do. I trust that in this digital age it's not difficult to be pinpointing the enemy, which surely you must be considered an enemy of sort for what you are trying to stand up against. How do you personally deal with that?
That's a very good question, actually. The way I personally deal with that is, for many years, I was quiet. I was very aware of the dangers. I was faced with the dangers myself. As a young person, at the age of 17, I even left my homeland, which is Norway, because I was threatened and abused and harassed to such an extent that I didn't feel safe anymore living there. So I left. And subsequently I remained silent for many, many years because I was scared. I was really scared. I was very fearful of the consequences of speaking up and of having my own voice. And eventually I just got to the point where I realized that not using my voice and not speaking up and not being myself, the consequences of that are far greater than somebody putting a bullet in my head. And I realized that I am willing to pay whatever price I will have to pay, but I will no longer compromise what I believe is right. And not just what I believe is right, but what so many people around the world in various communities are trying to struggle for: a more just, a more peaceful, a more cohesive, loving, compassionate world. How can I betray that? How can I not contribute to that? So for me, not participating became much more dangerous. In my heart, I believe if I resign myself and just dig a hole and hide in it forever, that's more dangerous to what I deeply believe in. And so for me, art and activism and my responsibility as a human being, I think, is to contribute. I think it is to participate in the world, and I think it is to do that to the best of my ability. And I was speaking with Evelyn last night as well, and it's, you know, I've had so many privileges in my life, you know, and I still do, you know, I'm able to be here and join you and get to sit here in such a beautiful place and speak about these things. There are people who are in very, very difficult circumstances around the world who, in spite of those circumstances, are standing up and are speaking out and doing what needs to be done in order to try and live a more dignified life, not just for themselves, but also for their fellow human beings. If they can do it, then shame on me. Certainly I need to do my best as well. So I try every single day. I am committed to living with my heart as fully as I possibly can, and to contributing and to being useful in any way that I possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you. On behalf of every one of us, thank you for the challenge. Thank you for setting the agenda for this conference.
Thank you very much. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Deeyah. I'm speechless too after listening to you. As I'm also a musician, I haven't done much